At the surface level, when you look at a data sheet or data sheets from different suppliers, the parts may look the same, but there are differences. But then I also felt that there were some gaps, and it was just taking way too long for us to basically find chips, evaluate chips, and connect with the supply base. What we have done is we have customized the search function, so you can actually scrape the web, so to speak. What the designers end up doing is they end up designing their system, not keeping in mind the deviations in the specs of the data sheet. One of the chips was actually designed out of spec in the system. And so the supplier came back and said, listen, my warranty doesn't cover it. So now imagine not having to have these face-to-face meetings and scheduling and all that, which ends up saving you weeks and weeks and weeks of time. Unless you have deep domain knowledge of how these devices are designed, manufactured, and produced at scale, right? There's no way possible for you to actually perform cost modeling. Each OEM is doing their own thing. We can basically take the common elements out and put them on a platform like ChipHub. You would want to go to someone who's actually lived it. That's important. That's super important. So not many startups are doing as much as we are. In the security, the privacy, and the governance. Was able to negotiate pricing down by 15 million a year. 15. So we're spending 50. So many of the chip suppliers don't even know, which of their chips are being used in designs. Once the sales guy finds out about my new design, that I'm looking for chips, that basically the sales guys are going to hound me, the brokers are going to start calling me. Without really even reading through the term sheet, that I essentially given up all my control of the company. Before you spend a dime on building anything,
right?
Go talk to people who you believe are going to be your target users.
Join us as we welcome Dr. Aftab Farooqi, founder and CEO of ChipHub, a visionary democratizing chip design and manufacturing.
With a PhD and extensive experience from leading semiconductor companies, Aftab is transforming how chips are made accessible. ChipHub offers a revolutionary platform simplifying complex processes for startups and SMS, fostering innovation across the ecosystem.
His unparalleled insights into operations, supply chain, and strategic scaling are crucial for understanding the future of chip development for all. Let's dive in.
Hello and welcome back to the Semiconductor Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Salah Nasri. And whether you're an industry veteran or someone that's just curious about semiconductor manufacturing, this is your podcast. With more than 100,000 views in under 6 months, I am asking you for a small favor. Click that subscribe button, because the more subscribers we get, the more dynamic the podcast will become, and we'll have the fortune, just like our guest today, that we'll be discussing about his career and his perspectives on the semiconductor manufacturing community. So, without further ado, it is with great pleasure, with a unanimous background in his career, scaling from the greatest companies in the semiconductor community, where now he's creating something very revolutionary for all of you out there to get your hands on. It is none other than Dr. Aftab Farooqi, who's the founder and CEO of ChipHub. Aftab, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure to have you. How would you like me to refer you? Aftab, Dr. Farooqi, Dr. Aftab?
Just Aftab. I love my first name.
Love it. Love it. They say that your first name is the most favorite word you like to hear. It is. That's what they say. So, Aftab, thanks for coming on the show. So, Aftab, I want to start off before talking about what you're doing right now, because I think everything that comes to the end product of course, has had to have a source. Could you briefly outline your career trajectory from being an IC designer in the late 80s to founding your first startup, Silicon Express?
Yeah, so I began my career as a product engineer back in 1987. It was my first job. I wasn't really sure what I was getting into. And as luck would have it, my job was to basically program these devices for our customers using advanced Boolean expression language, commonly called as ABLE back in those days.
I see.
And so that was my first job. And to be completely transparent, I just fell into semiconductors back then, and absolutely loved it. I was programming these devices and troubleshooting them, looking at fuse maps. And so for those in the audience who are familiar with, who go back as far as I've been, they can probably relate to it. It's analogous to writing RTL code for ASICs today, right? The front end code. And so that's what began my career in semiconductors, which was the precursor to then me transitioning to starting to design front end and back end semiconductors, so ICs. Back in those days, I was living in Seattle. There were very few limited career auctions, and so then I had to move to Silicon Valley back in the late 1990s, actually 1993 to be precise, and that's when I started my career in IC design. And so I did that for about approximately 15 years or so, and then went into semiconductor sourcing. So actually on the buy side. So I spent the first approximately 20 years or so, I would say, on the sell side, working for semiconductor device makers, and then switched to working for the OEMs on the buy side, just essentially sourcing semiconductors for various types of hardware equipment.
I see. And then I'd be intrigued to also know, looking at your resume, you were also at Google and Amazon, and you were involved, of course, as you mentioned, in semiconductor sourcing. So how did that experience at those two conglomerates, as one would say, shape the vision of what you're doing right now?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I actually began my sourcing career at Google, right? I wasn't familiar with how actually sourcing works, right?
I see.
I had always been on the other side of the table, so to speak, and so now I'm an OEM working with the chip suppliers and really the global supply base. And I had to learn a lot of things very fast, right? Because when you look at sourcing, for example, right, it's part of procurement, which is then part of a large spectrum of supply chain, right? Okay. And so I learned a lot of the best practices of the industry at Google. Mm-hmm. I had some great mentors and colleagues there. Really appreciate my ex-bosses, my managers who actually gave me the opportunity. I recall back when I was actually approached by Google to interview for a sourcing role. Frankly speaking, when I first saw that email, I looked at it and I was like, I think it's a fake email. Someone is sending me, and but they pinged me again, and so I spoke with the recruiter back then at the time, and I said, and I still recall, I told him, I said, I don't have any sourcing experience, and the response was just amazing, and it was as follows. It was basically, the recruiter told me that, the hiring manager looked at your resume and he believes that you have the perfect background for this role, and that whatever gaps there are, that you will be able to very quickly pick them up. So it was just a tremendous opportunity. And then, so at Google, I started sourcing semiconductors for the cloud infrastructure group, which was responsible for basically designing, developing, and decommissioning hardware for the data centers. So it was a tremendous experience, sourcing experience at Google. And then I switched to Amazon. But at Amazon, I was responsible for sourcing semiconductors for consumer products, which is quite different, right? Sourcing semiconductors for data center equipment such as compute, networking, storage, power systems, and so on and so forth is quite different from sourcing semiconductors for consumer products. There are peculiarities involved in determining as to the form, fit, and function of the devices that you're selecting for your designs. So really, it was incredible experience. There were several best practices, being used in those companies, but then I also felt that there were some gaps, right? And a lot of the processes were manual, and it was just taking way too long for us to basically find chips, evaluate chips, and connect with the supply base. And so that's what prompted me to go off and create this platform.
So, looking at the foundations that kind of led you to this role, to where you are today, you hold a PhD in electrical engineering, VLSI design to be specific. So, and this is from Texas Tech University. So in what ways has your academic background influenced your approach into innovation and business strategy, or did it not exist and it was just purely innovation focused and the business strategy came during your actual experience in your career?
No, I think it was both. I think when you're pursuing your PhD, and anyone who's earned a PhD can attest to it, that you're essentially traveling the untraveled path, right?
Right.
You're conducting research. You're trying to find a problem to solve, with a novel approach, right? And so in that academic environment, you're having lots of discussions with your mentors, with folks in the industry as well, to a certain extent, to a limited extent, but mainly your mentors, your professors, and you're reading a lot of research papers and trying to identify a unique problem to solve, and not only that, to actually make sure that it has a significant impact, right? From both academic as well as industrial perspective, right? And so I think it was tremendous. It forced me to go down the path, which is not certain, right? I still recall during my PhD interview, this was the entrance exam interview, where one of my professors basically told me to my face that, starting a PhD doesn't mean that you will be able to complete it, right? There are no guarantees, right? And so talk about, the uncertainty, right at the very beginning. Here is your professor who's going to be your chair of the committee and is telling you that, hey, you can finish the coursework, you can complete all the research you would like to, but unless you publish work that is actually refereed by both the academic and industrial colleagues, you will not be granted your degree. So it was a rude awakening, to be honest with you. I was like, okay, okay, I'm starting something I may not be able to finish. So I think there are a lot of parallels in between that and when you're starting a new company, for instance. So
So what's very interesting then, so from your career, you've gone into the academia area, the traditional way, and gone into these very large companies, and then Silicon Express came into play, and now ChipHub. What was the story of Silicon Express?
Yeah, so Silicon Express was a company that I founded back in 2008, which was basically to provide IC design services.
I see.
And we were focused on physical design services as well as package design services. So we were successful in raising some capital for it. We were able to go out and source EDA tools. In fact, I still recall negotiating a heck of a deal from a company called Synopsys, which is still around, obviously. So we sourced end-to-end tools from Synopsys back in those days, and yeah, so that was the objective, to perform physical design services for our customers of ICs, and also package design as well.
So let's go into now, in the present, the genesis of ChipHub.
Sure.
So what problems that did you see in the semiconductor industry that led you to create ChipHub? What triggered it?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So as I alluded to earlier, back in my sourcing career, there were a lot of best practices in the industry being practiced, so to speak, right? But then I also found several gaps in the way we were going out and looking for suppliers, and the way we were evaluating devices, right, and connecting with the supply base. Now, keep in mind that the semiconductor supply base is quite large, right? There was an article in TrendForce, I think about a year ago or so, which referenced like a few thousand chip companies going out of business actually in China. So the point I'm trying to make here is that the supply base is large. The problem still is, to this day, is how do you find the right chip, especially for sockets that require multiple sources, right? So it's relatively easier to identify a chip from NVIDIA or from Intel or from Broadcom or Qualcomm, right, for particular functions. But then you have 90% of the BOM on your board, which are different devices, right? You have timing devices, you have passive devices, you have fuses and other types of mechanical, electromechanical, and semiconductor devices. So literally hundreds and hundreds of different types of devices, and it takes a long time to evaluate them. At the surface level, when you look at a data sheet or data sheets from different suppliers, the parts may look the same, but there are differences. And so that's where you end up spending a lot of time evaluating the differences and making sure that you're designing to the correct specifications. So yeah.
So your I would say maybe elevator pitch or your motto for ChipHub is described as an AI-enabled semiconductor SaaS procurement platform. Could you elaborate more?
Yeah,
on
absolutely.
that for us, so we can understand a bit more clearer.
Yeah, absolutely. Be happy to. So basically, what we have in our platform is, if you're a hardware designer or a procurement professional, right, you would come to our platform. What we have done is we have customized the search function, so you can actually scrape the web, so to speak, look for a particular when you're looking for a particular device. And what we do is we present. So we do a lot of work in the background, and we present the relevant options to you, in PDFs, if you will, data sheets. And then you can actually preview those devices. You can decide to use AI to chat with those documents, right? We have, the platform enables you to basically perform comparative analysis between the different devices, generate all types of reports. And so the platform enables you to find devices, both from the web as well as from the platform's database itself, right? And then once you found the right device or devices, then the platform also has a lot of collaboration features, which basically allow you to invite both internal as well as external stakeholders to jointly evaluate these devices. Now, keep in mind, Salah, there's one thing that's extremely important to keep in mind, that the teams that are actually evaluating these devices, they're quite large, right? When you're designing a brand new product, let's say you're going from 0 to 1, you have the NPI team and you have the sustaining team, right? And typically when you're designing a product from 0 to 1, that's a 2 to 3 year long cycle, right? And so you have, for one program, you have a fairly large NPI team, a fairly large sustaining team, 30 plus people, on one program. And then on top of that, on average, you have 50 or so active programs in flight at any given OEM, right? Whether you're designing a compute box or a consumer product or some sort of an automotive widget, if you will, right, or industrial or consumer, you have a lot of programs in flight for which there are many, many people, literally hundreds of people, right, involved in making these sourcing decisions. So what's really important to keep in mind, if you're not familiar with supply chain processes, that there are big teams evaluating these devices, and they all have to come to consensus and sign off on it, right? Right. Because at the end of the day, it's going to have an impact on your design, right? And they're of varying functionalities, and so we were spending way, and these are expensive resources, by the way, right? These folks don't come cheap; they're not inexpensive, especially here in the Valley. Yeah. So what the platform allows you to do is to basically crunch that time, shrink that time, bring people to the platform, and really optimize the entire process. So I always say jokingly to my team that, when we were working with the OEMs, if we can save them, say 20% or 30% of the time from these sort of mundane tasks, right, I would consider a job done, because then they can take that time, that they've saved and do something more important with it, right? Maybe, perhaps focus more on the actual design work, if you will. So I'm looking at things like design for manufacturing, design for reliability, design for test, things like that.
So basically you're optimizing their procurement processes, or what is it that you're specifically optimizing?
Yeah. So procurement is, most people, when you mention procurement, they're thinking placing purchase orders, right? But there is a separate task, if you will, which is called sourcing, right? Right. So sourcing is what I'm referring to. So basically, what we are, So it's not the placement of the POs, but it's the actual evaluation of the devices upfront during the NPI process. And by the way, we do the same thing at the sustaining level as well. But as the discussion goes on, I will expand on this.
So this is more so. Would you class it as indirect procurement? Is that what you're doing, or is it direct procurement?
It's direct procurement, actually.
Direct procurement. So how do companies do it currently now?
Yeah, so that's a great question, right? So the common approach is to basically, especially here in North America and in Europe, to focus really on the design aspect of it, right? So design it. The OEM would design it and then basically work with their CM or their ODM or JDM partner in China or somewhere in Asia, and have them basically manufacture it, right? So you would design the product, create your BOM. I'm just giving you one use case here, one example, and then basically hand it off to your manufacturing partner, right? And the way the sourcing is managed is that if I'm an OEM here in the US, not everyone, but some of the OEMs would basically take ownership of some of the key devices, and then basically leave the rest of the sourcing decisions up to the CM and ODM partners in Asia, which I think is quite risky to do, right? And is expensive as well. But this is the common approach, right? That you would design a product here and then ship it off to your CM, your JDM partner in Asia, and have them basically finish it off for you. And obviously, there is a lot of back and forth between the two entities to make sure that the product goes into production smoothly. So that's the current process, right? In the case of a JDM involvement, your partner in Asia is doing some design as well, right? And you can basically carve out some of the design aspects of your system design to your JDM partner. So this is the traditional process that's used in the industry today.
I see. So looking at the core functionality and differentiators, you've got traditional procurement platforms and currently are offering, that often cater to general industries. So how does ChipHub specifically cater the nuanced requirements of hardware and semiconductor professionals as well?
That's a great question, right? That's a great question. So when you look at the traditional tools that are available today, right? There are quite a few. There are several established companies and also some startups. And like you said, very rightfully, rightly, they're general purpose procurement tools, right? But one of the key things when you're sourcing semiconductors is, as a sourcing professional, you have to perform cost modeling, right? And so unless you have deep domain knowledge of how these devices are designed, manufactured, and produced at scale, right? There's no way possible for you to actually perform cost modeling. And so imagine yourself using, a tool like ours, which enables you to do that, prepares you to negotiate effectively with your supply base, right? And so this cost modeling is just one example,
right?
And so this is the modeling is different for different types of devices. So as I mentioned earlier, there are hundreds and hundreds of different types of devices, and each model is different, and each model has a lot of variables in it, and those variables keep changing.
Right.
So what we really need in our industry, in our soon to become $1 trillion industry by the end of this decade, right? And I'm only referring to the chip industry. I'm not talking about the EDA space. I'm not talking about the equipment, just the chip space. $1 trillion industry by the end of this decade. Imagine, just think about it. Like, there is no specific tool that exists today in the industry that I know of,
right,
that allows you to do that. And what's happening today is that each OEM is doing their own thing, right? And wherein they really don't need to. We can basically take the common elements out and put them on a platform like ChipHub, and basically offer a low cost solution to our customers, whereby they don't have to create their own solutions in-house, right? So imagine the efficiencies they can realize and the optimization in the way they go about sourcing. And literally, I mean, it's with the click of a button, you can create your updated cost model. You will never know your exact costs, if you will. That's because you have IP on your chips, and that's hard to sort of it's hard to put a price tag on those types of things. But for 95% of the chip, if you will, 90% of the chip, you can actually come fairly close to guesstimating the approximate cost of the chip, right?
I see.
And so I think that's just one differentiator, compared to some of the general purpose platforms that are available in the industry.
So, I mean, early on in the discussion, you emphasize on the importance of a neutral platform that involves every stakeholder from the NPI through production to EOL. So why is neutrality so critical? And most importantly, how does your platform, ChipHub, maintain it? And how is it going to support all of these issues?
Yeah, that's another good question. So So to answer that question, first you have to go back and look at who are all the ecosystem partners, right? So very simply put, you have the buy side and the sell side, right? So on the buy side, you have the OEMs, the CMs, the JDMs, the ODMs, right? These large entities that are designing products, manufacturing, and so on. And then on the sell side, you have your chip sellers, you have your chip sales representatives, who are basically the sales guys pitching your chips. You got a chip supplier to customers, and then you have your chip distributors, right? Distribution, who are actually stocking parts and shipping parts to customers. And then you have these non-franchised brokers, right? Now, keep in mind that there's some of these brokers. There are several of them, by the way, and they're multi-billion-dollar businesses, right? And so when a product is being designed, a hardware product is being designed, the TCO analysis is being performed, total cost of ownership. Well, guess what? None of these guys have a seat at the table, so to speak, right? And the decisions are actually being made without the supply base being aware of it, right? Brokers come in, way after the fact, the product has gone into production and there is a shortage or excess or whatever. So they have no idea as to what the OEMs are designing and what chips they're using, right? In many cases, Salah, many of the chip suppliers don't even know, which of their chips are being used in designs, right? And so imagine you're a chip seller, right? And an OEM comes to you and says, "I've designed in your chip. It's expected to go into production next year. And by the way, our product life cycle is going to be from 5 to 7 years, from launch of production through end of life." And the supplier, I was involved in many of these conversations where the supplier is looking at me dumbfounded, saying basically, "Hey, it's like, but we don't plan to keep this part in production for that long. We're phasing it out, right? Wow, how did you design it in, right? And so they were never part of that decision, right? Because commonly what engineers tend to do is, they want to keep the sales guys out, right, away, and which is not the right strategy, right? You want to keep your sourcing people involved, and you want to make sure that the suppliers are aware of it. So, and then there is this trust issue, right? That, hey, once the sales guy finds out about my new design, that I'm looking for chips, that basically the sales guys are going to hound, the brokers are going to start calling me and all that stuff. And so, basically more of a distraction for them. So this is a big problem in our industry. This is a big problem in our industry, where the entire supply base is not fully engaged up front. It's okay to share information confidentially, right? And so the relationship of these OEMs with these brokers, especially, and with distribution, is very transactional.
Right.
I need parts today. Ship me, 1 million to my manufacturing location in China, and that's the end of it, right? There is no long-term relationship, if you will, right?
I see.
And so the whole idea behind creating ChipHub is, for one, we want to make sure that whoever is creating it has the right deep domain knowledge, that they really understand both the buy side and the sell side of the business. Because for people to trust you on both sides, on this platform, right? Imagine, right? You would want to go to someone who's actually lived it. Right? That's important. That's super important. So that's why I think, there is a need for a neutral platform in the industry. This is something new, right? It's disruptive in the way things are being done today. But I think that is what's needed now.
So if you look at the cost modeling and TCO perspective, how does the ChipHub platform handle total cost of ownership, including both CapEx and the OpEx? And what I would love to know is what value does that bring to, of course, the hardware design teams, compared to the conventional procurement methods?
Yeah. So our platform not only provides benefits to the hardware design teams, but also to the procurement professionals who are actually performing this cost modeling, if you will. The hardware guys are, evaluating the technical specifications of the chips right here. Now, back to your question, when you're looking at CapEx and OpEx, right? Traditionally, before you start designing a hardware product, you have to perform that.
Right.
And the TCO has to be positive for you to proceed, right? You want to make sure that whatever you're going to design and sell is going to make you money, right? And so the TCO has to be significantly positive, way, above your upfront investment, if you will. So our platform, basically what it does is, when you look at the at CapEx, so CapEx is typically, basically you're investing in tools, investing in equipment, right? These physical, tangible assets, if you will, right? Whereas on the OpEx side, it's really the materials, right?
The OpEx side.
The OpEx side, right? And there are other contributors as well, such as energy, for example, consumption, especially in a data center type of environment, right? Energy consumption is a very, very big factor that goes into calculating the OpEx, if you will. So the way our platform is very, basic at the moment right now, in it that, we're basically enabling you to keep track of your costs. So your spend and your savings, right, with your supply base. And then over time, we have plans to add other things into the way these CapEx and OpEx costs are calculated.
I see.
But this is the key. This is going to be one of the key benefits of using ChipHub.
I see. So with ChipHub, of course, you've got one of the key things mentioned in there. And is it evident any product that doesn't have the word AI is not going to be implemented? So the adoption rate is going to be very low. But you specifically mentioned that it is AI driven. So could you share an example of how AI is used at ChipHub to, of course, guide key decision makers or key decision moments in semiconductor procurement? And we could maybe talk about two elements: vendor selection, or maybe we could talk about cost optimization.
Absolutely. So that's a great question. So what we've done is we've built several workflows in our platform. One of which I'll touch on, which goes as follows. So basically, if you're a hardware designer, you would one of the things you can do is you can search. You can search the web. You can type in your specifications. Let's say you type in, whatever 3.3 volt voltage regulator, if you will, dropout, whatever, any kind of device. What we do in the background is our engine basically goes out and looks for data sheets of these parts, right, and brings them to you, right, and now you can preview these devices, make your selection, right. This is just one example. It's not looking at the platform's database. That's a separate workflow. But this first workflow, it's a beautiful workflow, right? I love it. I love demonstrating it to customers because it's an end-to-end thing, right? So you're going out, you're looking for devices, you make your selection, you put them into the library, and now what you do is you invite other users. So you invite your procurement people or your materials people or your program managers, your ops PM or your TPM, right? Your sustaining people and say, hey, let's collectively look at these devices. Let's use AI to extract information from these documents, right? And so what's, it's easier to extract information that's apparent, in the tables or in the figures or in the charts or in the text, right? But so this is a very key point I'm about to make here. It's a very important point. And that is that oftentimes what the designers end up doing is they end up designing their system not keeping in mind the deviations in the specs of the data sheet. And this is where AI comes in. Right? So when you're looking at a device data sheet, it gives you the electrical specifications, the mechanical specifications, and all that. Right? But as a designer, what you have to do is keep in mind that whenever you are designing, you want to make sure that you comply with those specifications, that you're not designing your system or subsystem, with using deviated specifications. And in the industry, this is what's called the white space.
Okay.
It's a very big problem, by the way. And I actually experienced it during my sourcing careers. What had happened was, I'll give you an example here, share an example with you. We had deployed this huge box out there in the industry, a multi-million-dollar box, and huge business for the company. And we started experiencing some field failures. And to make the long story short, the guys went out there, did some diagnostics, troubleshooting, and all that, and they found out that, one of the chips is a critical chip. One of the chips was actually designed out of spec in the system. And so the supplier came back and said, listen, my warranty doesn't cover it, right? It's you guys who designed it. You should have been more careful. And it turned out to be our problem back then. It turned out to be our problem, right? Now imagine, and now, we're in this situation for several weeks. It's impacting revenue for everyone, right? And not only that, it has, just significant legal ramifications now, right? Because now you've deployed something out there in the industry, and it was this one customer who had found it, but we had this box sitting in so many different places. So that's where AI. So this is one of the ways we can use AI to enable the hardware guys to make smart decisions up front, to really do extensive analysis up front, using the model's reasoning capabilities, and of course yours own as well. Plus, the nice part of it is that you have your own team there. You have your internal stakeholders as well as your external stakeholders. So on our platform, what you can do is you can actually invite the suppliers in and say, hey, by the way, I'm looking at your chip. I am interested in it. Let's have a conversation. So now imagine not having to have these face-to-face meetings and scheduling and all that, which ends up saving you weeks and weeks and weeks of time, right? And so this is where the efficiency and the optimization comes in.
So this is remarkable as a solution, because at the end of the day, it's like what's the word? There's a phrase for it, Aftab. It's like prevention is better than cure.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
That's what you're doing. I mean, you're making a prevention element.
All what we're doing.
And even when you look at the upfront costs, I mean, let's say for example, it's like an insurance.
Exactly.
So it is. It's an insurance.
The thing is, I tell my customers whenever I'm presenting the platform to them that, this is, use it as another tool for you. Right. Augmenting your existing tool suite to be able to make smarter decisions. It's actually to your disadvantage not to do it,
right?
Because it's such an incredible technology, right? AI has been around for a long time, but generative AI in the last 2 years or so has impacted everything,
right?
All of our industries. And so why not use it in our spaces?
So I mean, so my next key thing about, let's say, I don't know, one of the, I wouldn't say inflection points. I think one of the biggest challenges for you, it will be the data security and privacy.
Yeah.
Because I think, you're dealing with significant IP.
Yes.
And sensitive cost data is involved. So what measures have you done with ChipHub to put in place to ensure that data security is top-notch and also confidentiality is top-notch alongside, with all these regulations and frameworks in place?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So not many startups are doing as much as we are. In all three spaces, if you will, as in the security, the privacy and the governance, right? It's a pretty wide spectrum, right? The way we have designed our software and have conducted our code reviews, we want to make sure that the safety is factored in, right? Especially when it comes to user data, right? On our platform, we enable our customers to label their data as either public or private, right? And if it's private, it's completely siloed. It, no one can access to it, but the individual actually, even within the organization, who's uploaded that information, right?
But
And
just to jump in, if it's private, why would they put it on the platform?
so if they want to share it with someone privately,
I see. Sorry.
right? Okay. Right. So let's say, for example, you are a chip seller and you're promoting your devices. You can upload your devices on our platform. And if you are a preferred partner, we will show you as a preferred partner on your screen, if you will. So let's say a user comes along and they're searching the platform database and they find your part, they're interested in it. What we do is we show to the user that you're a preferred partner up at the top of the data sheet, whatever they're looking at, whatever document it is. And if the user is interested in it, they can actually click on it and connect with the supplier, with you, right? Now, that is if you're a preferred partner. Whether or not you've made that document to be public or private doesn't matter, right? But if you've labeled it as private, let's say users come to our platform and they are conducting a search, they will never be able to find that part.
Okay.
They will, unless the uploader of that information decides to share information with a particular user by actually inviting them into a conversation, right? So what you do is, if you're a chip seller, or if you're an OEM and you're looking at a confidential data sheet from a supplier, you can basically upload it and you can share it with your own teammates, or you can invite the specific supplier to our platform and have a conversation about it. One more thing I should mention here, which is critical, is in as far as security and governance is concerned. So we've partnered with a software company, which is basically conducting approximately 3,000 tests nightly, on a nightly basis, to looking for basically vulnerabilities and any issues, security issues and privacy issues. And as soon as they're detected, we are informed of it, if there are, and we go in and we fix them. So we're actually running approximately 3,000 tests every single night.
Wow.
And that's why I said, not many companies of our size, are expending so much resource on this. But this is an excellent question. It's an important one, actually, in our industry.
So you nearly kind of classed as a serial founder, Aftab. So this is your second venture.
It's my second startup.
What lessons did you learn from Silicon Express that you've applied to building and leading ChipHub today?
Okay, so it's been a long time since I founded Silicon Express. It was back in 2008, and to be honest with you, I made so many mistakes. One there's so many to mention, but one was negotiating the term sheet with your suppliers or with your investors. I was so excited. Back then it was my first startup. I had just convinced someone to invest money into my startup. You know how it is, right?
Yeah.
And I was so excited over the validation of my idea and all that I just, without really even reading through the term sheet, and typically you would hire a lawyer, spend $20,000-$30,000 on it, and make sure that your interests are protected.
Right.
Well, I never did any of that, and I just signed on it, and little did I know, and I found out after the fact that I essentially given up all my control of the company, regardless of whatever state of the company, it was going to be in the future, right? In terms of an M&A or raising another round or whatever it is, I had absolutely no control. And so that was one. The other was basically not performing enough screening when you're hiring people, right? Again, it was the excitement. It was, the exuberance of sort of the world I was going through at the time that I just, I looked at a resume, and started hiring people without really performing due diligence. And
We all made that mistake, yeah.
and that's a big mistake. That was a big mistake. There were several others, not keeping an eye on the ball, so to speak. I was so sort of focused on going out looking for customers that I didn't really bother much looking at the current projects underway and the progress we were making, right? Which was another crucial mistake. So, as they say, you live and learn. But I made a lot of mistakes in my first startup.
Even though I'm on a junior level in comparison to yourself, I can relate to those issues that you've just faced. Believe me. Yeah. So I want to dig into this one in specific when you talk about. I've made this mistake where I've just based someone purely and merely based on 3 encounters and a document that tells me about their background. And then they come in 3 months. It's like a honeymoon period. The performance is incredible, and then all of a sudden down the drain.
Exactly.
And when you start, some way, somehow, you cross paths with different people who may have worked with that individual, and they tell you everything. Maybe they expose the red flags, and then you're there pondering, going, "Oh my God, if I only did my due diligence and got some references and called these people up." But you have to go for it, because at the end of the day, you're in that situation on a gung-ho mindset when you're building a company, right?
Exactly.
And time is money.
Exactly.
But there again, prevention is cure. Prevention is better than cure.
Exactly.
And that is one of the challenges. I mean, when you look at it from that perspective, if I was to say to you, hey, Aftab, you should definitely do your due diligence on those guys. Someone said that to me as well in my previous career. I would have done very cautious.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you don't see the impact of the problem in the now, but you see the impact in the problem later. And that is why solutions like, you're a friend of mine, and I'm going to vouch you in this. Solutions like ChipHub is the prevention, which is better than the cure.
Yes.
It is the prevention from going down a few months and then you're just spending a lot of money when something really bad happens. Or that valuable time that you're focusing on, it's better for it to be outsourced and you focus on the big stuff.
Exactly.
And that's the problem. When you're on the entrepreneurial perspective, the dangers that I found in my history, in my career, beginning in the first decade of the business, was focusing on these nitty-gritty things.
Yeah.
Small things, they do matter.
They do matter.
But they're better to be outsourced.
Exactly.
Focus on the big things.
Exactly.
And focus on the bigger picture and delegate the nitty-gritty stuff.
Exactly. I mean,
time is so valuable. It is the most expensive commodity on earth.
Speed is critical.
Yeah.
Speed is critical, right? And you've touched on many things here. And I'll try to address each one of them as best as I remember. So speed is critical when you're a startup. That's and so you have to move fast, right? You don't have the luxury of big teams and taking your sweet time in making decisions and all that stuff. So you just have to make decisions, and if you've made a wrong decision, you course correct yourself and you keep going, right? Now, the other thing you touched on was the why ChipHub, right? Why use this tool? I mean, there are things being done in a particular way today. They have been done for decades. Yes, there are certain areas that need to be improved upon. But things are being done today, right? Products are being designed and manufactured and built and various verticals, especially in the adjacent hardware industry, right? Whether it's automotive or industrial or consumer or high data centers or what have you, right? It's not as if things are not being done today. What ChipHub allows you to do is to improve efficiencies, right? So if you can afford to invest, and pardon me for the shameless plug here, if you can afford to invest, let's say $500,000 on a platform like ours for an annual subscription, it's totally worth it, because that's really the cost of one, sourcing professional, especially here in the Valley, for example, right? Resources are becoming expensive everywhere, right? And so you look at your trade-offs, Okay, so if I were to invest $500,000, what am I getting in return? And it's huge. I'll give you one very specific example here. What our tools allow you to do it. And I didn't have the capability to do it as fast as you can now using ChipHub. Back when I worked for this one company sourcing chips, I was given a task to source, it's a very specific example, to look at our spend on capacitors that are used on boards and systems, right? So I did my analysis and I realized that we're spending about $50 million a year, $50 million a year. So I reached out to my manufacturing partners in Asia and I said, I've talked to like 20 suppliers. And what I did was I did my homework. They were buying on my behalf. They were sourcing and everything. They were making the decisions. What I did was I didn't tell them up front. I looked at the supply base. I invited them all. I met with them. I went visited. I literally traveled the globe, when you have to do that as part of your job. I came back and after 6 to 8 weeks, I did my analysis and I negotiated pricing and was able to negotiate pricing down by $15 million a year. 15. So we're spending 50 and with just a couple of months of work. And if I had the tools available that you can now use ChipHub for, literally with a click of a button, you can send your RFQs to thousands of suppliers and track your spend and savings, right? Trust but verify. It's okay to outsource stuff, but then do some due diligence up front. And I went to my boss, and I don't know if my boss is listening to this or not. I think if you are, you can attest to it. And I presented it to him, and he was just flabbergasted. He looked at it and he said, is this really correct? And I said, yes, sir, it is. I said, here are the numbers. I have the proposals. We'll say 15 million on capacitors. And Salah, at this OEM I was working for, we were managing multi-billion-dollar semiconductor spend, right? And no one is even looking at this, right? And so now there you go, the justification for it.
The ROI.
Yeah.
After, are there any notable partnerships or integrations that amplify ChipHub's capabilities? For example, like EDA tool vendors or foundries or logistics services.
Right. So yes, the short answer is yes. But for our space, our key partners are OEMs, right?
Okay.
So our if you look at our customer tiers, if you will, tier one our customers are OEMs, hardware OEMs, and then of course you have the chip suppliers, right? Not the EDA companies, but the chip suppliers. And the distributors to a certain extent, and of course the brokers, if you will. So as of today, we've launched this product just a few weeks ago, 6-7 weeks ago, and we're already in negotiations with several partners. Right. We're talking to OEMs, we're talking to brokers, we're talking to distribution. Right. And in fact, as of today, we already have one of fairly decent sized distributor based in Mexico who's partnered with us. And then we also have a contract manufacturing partner in Mexico as well. And these are some of the folks that I've known for 25 plus years. We've recently announced our partnership with the Korean American Semiconductor Professional Alliance, which basically has 170 chip companies, Korean chip companies as their members, and they're really excited about us being able to help them with exposure, if you would.
Right.
One of the things I haven't mentioned, so far in our conversation is that our platform, we can actually do some proactive marketing for you. And it's very simple. Once you become a member of our platform, we'll create this special widget for you, and you'll upload your stuff into it, and we'll go out and do some lead generation for you.
Wow.
Right.
Okay.
And so that's the other side of it. So we can absolutely help startups. We can augment some of the large chip companies who already have well-established sales networks. This is another tool for you guys. You don't have to displace or replace your existing sales infrastructure, if you will. This is another tool for you guys that you can use to augment your sales efforts, if you will.
Yes.
So, for very little subscription cost.
I see. How have hardware engineers or OEMs, as you mentioned, and suppliers responded so far to ChipHub? What have they said? I mean, could you share any early success stories or any milestones that the platform's achieved?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned, we've signed up with a major contract manufacturer in Mexico, a major chip distributor in Mexico. But the important thing here, Salah, is that before we started developing this platform, I had actually, reached out to some of my colleagues in the industry. Now, even though I came from the industry, I actually presented this whole idea to my colleagues in the industry, and I said, "Hey, what do you think? Do you think it would benefit our ecosystem?" And so this was like over a year ago. And that's the key thing here. Before you start building stuff, you want to make sure that you want to talk to people, your potential users, target users, and validate the idea. That's absolutely crucial. Before you spend a dime on building anything,
right?
Go talk to people who you believe are going to be your target users,
right?
And get the whole thing validated, right? And get their inputs. And so we did that. And I'm not able to name those companies, but literally they're the who's who of our industry, here in the Valley and elsewhere. And so we collected their inputs. And today we have our product under evaluation by one of the EV companies.
Oh, wow.
They're looking at no commitments yet, but they're looking at us. We are talking to a major non-franchised IC broker that's based in Europe as well as in North America, and we are actually going to be presenting our solutions to them next week. So just in the last 6 to 7, 8 weeks, we made quite a bit of progress.
Marvelous. Aftab, if you could have a crystal ball in your hand, where would you like to see, or how would you like to see ChipHub in 5 years?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, as you may already know, and you've gone through it yourself, right? I mean, you're in your 15th year, right? You're celebrating your 15th anniversary this year.
Thank you.
Congratulations. It takes a long time to build a business that's meaningful and has lasting effects, right? We've already been in our, we're, I think, into our third year now, right? I started the concept of this whole thing 2 years ago. And my vision was that it's going to take me at least 5 to 7 years to build this thing to a level where I would like it for it to be, right? But you have to start small.
Right.
You have to start small. You want to, you pick something small, you solve the problem really well for the customer, you scale it up to the max, just that one feature, if you will, we call it internally, right? We've got like 10 features on our platform. We really do. I mean, it's a beautiful platform. The customers are telling us, and it's a mix of AI workflows, non-AI workflows, and agentic workflows, right? Beautiful agentic workflows. One of the agentic workflows is basically that if you are a user OEM, you can upload your candidate device data sheet let's say your reference device data sheet, and you're looking for, let's say, multiple sources, we enable you to upload, let's say, 5, 6, 7, however many data sheets as your reference parts. And our tool basically goes off and does the agentic workflow. It'll figure out it'll identify the category of that part. It'll go off and ask relevant questions, and it'll give you a nice little report as to, what the similarities and the differences are between those devices. This is what we call an agentic workflow, right? And we have to be very careful that we can't really leave everything up to an autonomous AI agent. You have to have human in the loop in the level of complexities we're dealing with here in hardware designs and evaluating chips. So in 5 years' time or so, I can easily see us having a lot of our workflows as AI enabled workflows, if you will, from end to end, right? We are staying away from being the logistics side of the business, demand fulfillment, if you will, right? We're more focused on demand creation side of our business, meaning, and if you look at it from the development perspective, more on the NPI, sustaining as well, but we want to stay away from being able to ship parts to you. We want to be able to do everything except that. And then it's also super important to know what is it that you don't want to do. We're not going to design these systems for you, right? The supply chain space is huge in itself, and there are so many problems to be solved in this space, and we can't be everything to everything. So what we can do is we basically focus on sourcing. We can then step into procurement, right, and build flows, AI-driven workflows, but stay away from design and stay away from folks who are, responsible for demand fulfillment, if you will, shipping parts to you.
Aftab, this has been a remarkable discussion, and
thank you.
I think we can go even further. I think this discussion is worthy for a second episode, for sure.
You.
I want to go straight into this perspective then, in terms of your bottleneck today, your biggest challenge today. What is it that do you need, that the industry needs to listen to right now to help you make ChipHub a global explosion?
Yeah, so I'm going to be very direct and to the point. Come join us on our journey. Okay. Partner with us, work with us, collaborate with us. I'm taking a huge risk. I left a really decent job in the industry here in the Valley 2 years ago, and really wanted to do this, and I'm absolutely loving it. But come join us on our journey, and let's collaborate. I say that more often than not. I say it takes a village to be successful.
Yeah.
In anything that's meaningful and has a lasting impact, it takes a village. So let's work together. Reaching out to the OEMs. Take a chance on us. Spend a few dollars. Try out our tool. Right. It's a very small fraction of your overall spend. Right. We would love to, do paid POCs for you. We would love to have you try out our platform. You don't have much to lose, right? But let's work together and try to move the needle, as much as we can collectively together. That's my message. And then, of course, we are actively now in our fundraising as well. So if you are interested in investing in our kind of business, please ping me. I'll be happy to talk to you.
Marvelous. After to wrap up this marvelous podcast interview with yourself, we have a tradition on the show where the last person leaves a question for the next person. So the question that was left for you by the last person is, what do you hate about what you do?
Oh, so I know the answer to that. Being away from my family.
So
I've been fortunate to have been married to this wonderful person. Yeah, I got so damn lucky. It's been over 30 years to this beautiful person who's shaped me in so many ways I couldn't have fathomed. Being the person that I am today, she has really improved me. And my two lovely daughters, that's my world, and that is what troubles me the most, when I'm not able to do as many things as I would like to with them. And there've been times when I've had to pick one or the other, and that's been difficult.
Yeah, it's a hard one. It's when I took the sabbatical off last year, I was asking people, what is your biggest regret? People, veterans in the game, legends in the game, and they all said the same thing. I wish I spent more time with my kids. It's for the sacrifice we pay, unfortunately. But on that note, Aftab, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm rooting for your success. I really want ChipHub to be out there and be a game changer in the market. And definitely looking forward to have you in the next episode to go deeper on how ChipHub's progress is going on. To the audience, thank you for joining us in this wonderful discussion. If you want to reach out to Aftab, the link is right here. You can access him on LinkedIn. He's accessible on here. Click on his profile here and you can reach out to him directly, whether you want to use ChipHub or invest in his company. Whether you are pondering on what's next on the show, there's one way to find out. Subscribe. All right. But other than that, it takes a village to raise a chip, as they say. So make sure you join us, and we'll see you at the next episode. Until then, take care and goodbye for now.